Tired of being dragged around by forest bandits? Well, maybe you need a quiet life, a humble life. Perhaps you need the life of a blacksmith. In this here video, we're going to take a look at the smithing system and the basics of how it works. Do remember though that Bannerlord is in early access and the smithing system at the time of launch doesn't quite work completely properly. Some things are just bugged out, so don't be surprised if you see some things not working within the smithing system at the time of making this video. So let us begin your journey towards becoming the greatest blacksmith in Calradia. So the first order of business to become the greatest smith known to man is to get wood. Lots of wood. And no, not the genital kind. This can be found in small villages that produce hardwood or in any city. If you go to the traders and scroll your way down to hardwood, this is what we'll be needing to start our smithing journey. Do check the price though. This is 11, which is pretty damn good. I've got it for as low as 9 denars before, but it can go up to 30 or 40 denars if someone's ripping you off. So do be careful where you buy your wood. Buy as many as you want or as you can afford, and we'll get cracking. So then we need to head over to our local smithy, which can be found in any city. Head over to the refine tab and go ahead and whip out your hardwood. You'll be able to turn 2 into 1 piece of charcoal, which is what we're going to need to start our smithing journey. So go ahead down the bottom, smash refine, and you'll gain yourself a charcoal. Do this as many times as you can. As you level up your smithing and get more perks, you'll be able to get more efficient ways of getting the materials. Here I can get 3 hardwood for 2 charcoal, so that's better than 2 for 1. But as I say, that's a perk that comes with the blacksmith tree. We can also use this tab to refine the materials that we've gathered, perhaps from looters or bandits that we've stolen it from. Crude iron, iron ore, straight up iron bars. This is going to be all the stuff we're going to need to make our weapons. You can also get them from smelting down weapons or buying them from traders, but looting them will probably automatically happen. That brings us to smelting. Any weapons you have in your inventory can be turned into materials that you can use to create weapons with. And when you smelt down weapons, as you can see, I'm learning new smithing parts as I go. I do have a perk though that means I'm learning them quite quickly, which is why I'm getting quite a few of them, smelting down these weapons. Now, one more important thing to be aware of is that you might see this message in the bottom right. You must rest and spend some time before you can do this action. If you scroll over to your portrait, you'll notice you have smithy stamina. I've currently got 7 out of 100. I'm tired basically, so I need to rest. You just need to go to a city and wait for some time. So you've polished your wood, you've smelted down your weapons, and you're ready to forge. It all begins with all the different parts of the weapon and how you want to build it. What kind of weapon do you want? Do you want something fast, something with a lot of reach, something with a lot of damage? It's all going to be determined by the parts you choose, and they will affect the stats of the weapon. We've got all different kinds of blades with all kinds of different properties. Do you want a curved blade, a straight blade? Do you want it to be made of fine steel? Do you want to create a katana? Well, you potentially can with all the options you have available. There's a lot out there, and it comes for all the different parts. Handguards, the hilt, the pommel. All of these different bits have their own characteristics which are going to affect those stats, giving the weapon its certain characteristics. You can also make the weapon smaller or larger, depending again on what kind of weapon you want, although making it larger increases the difficulty. And difficulty is the next big thing we need to look at. How good are we at making weapons compared to the complexity of the task? Well, it all begins with this bar over on the left. As you can see, my smithing skill is currently 60, represented by this yellow ring, and the difficulty of making this particular weapon, which is quite fancy, is 150, which is very much above my pay grade. So if I go ahead and forge this weapon, you'll see I don't quite get what I intended. I've got a lot of minus stats taking away from the stats I was supposed to get. So if we take a look at the thrust speed, for example, I'm supposed to get 94 from this weapon that I put together, but because I didn't craft it very well, I've got -3 and I've only got 91 thrust speed on it. So I've lost stats because I've tried to make a sword that was above my skill level. This is a crapo sword. It's not really terrible, it could still do some damage in a fight, but it's not one I want to outfit myself with. So we'll probably just give it to the kids to play with. Or if you do end up with a crapo sword, you can go ahead and smelt it back down to materials to get those materials back somewhat, and also just gain some experience at smithing, because all these different actions increase your smithing experience. So if we want to create a weapon that is within our skill level, we need to bring this difficulty down, and that's all done with the different tiers of the parts of the weapons. Tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What you'll notice is that all tier 1 things are difficulty 10, difficulty 10, difficulty 10. Tier 2, difficulty 20, 20, 20. Tier 3, 30, 30, 30. You get the idea. You see where it's going. 40 and 50. So these numbers add up to give you that difficulty number. So I need to make sure the difficulty is lower than my skill level. So we do this by making some of the parts a bit simpler. We'll go with this funky curved blade. We'll go with a tier 1 handguard, a tier 1 grip, and a tier 1 pommel. So that one's super easy, brings the difficulty down to 40. So I can make that no problem. I could increase some of these parts to tier 2 and I'd still be able to make this weapon. So if I forge this, I'll get the stats that I intended to get. But this sword, unfortunately, is pretty ugly. So we will call this the Uggo sword. We definitely don't want to use it. Again, we'll just give it to the kids. But we've got all the stats that we intended because it's within our smithing level. So as long as the difficulty is at or below your smithing level, you'll be able to craft the weapon to the stats intended. As I said, all the tiered parts go up in increments of 10, and you'll have to use the size slider to try and get it up in single numbers if you want to try and match it. Anything over your smithing level will probably create a bad weapon. But there is one thing I can't quite figure out, and that is if there's a relation between the difficulty bar line and that yellow smithing ring. I found that if you line those two bars up, you'll very often get a crappy weapon because it's above your difficulty, but occasionally you will actually get an improvement to a stat rather than a loss. You can see here I've got a green 1, which means it's 1 higher than what was advertised. Now I've messed around with this a bunch to try and figure out how the hell that happened and what it was exactly that made that happen, but I can't quite figure it out. So until I do, we'll have to see. Maybe it's just a bug though, maybe something's just not quite working properly. It's hard to say. But either way, that should give you the basic gist of smithing. At the moment we can craft various kinds of swords, but some of these are still bugged out, like you can't make axes for example. It just doesn't work at the moment. I'm sure it'll be fixed in the future. And when it comes to learning and unlocking new weapon parts, you just need to smith. They unlock when you forge and smelt different weapons. So the more you smith, the more different parts you'll have available. And one last useful thing to know, if you're not interested in taking on smithing for your character yourself, you can get one of your companions to do it if they have a smithing skill. Unfortunately, none of mine do, but that's fine because I want to do it anyway. But it is an option. So there you go, a basic guide to the world of smithing. I'll probably redo this guide when the smithing system works properly and I fully understand it. I imagine at the top level of blacksmithing we'll be able to make some pretty sweet swords that will do a lot of damage, or that we could sell for a tidy profit. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.